The lie started with a single, reckless nod. I was standing in my boss's office, surrounded by his collection of vintage jazz records, when he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Evan, you and Liam make a hell of a couple." My heart stopped, but I smiled and nodded. Because what else do you do when your very influential, very wealthy boss thinks you're dating his son? It was a misunderstanding born in a crowded Seattle coffee shop 3 months ago. I'd been grabbing a latte at Brew and Bloom, the kind of place where the baristas know your order and the walls are covered in local art. Liam Caldwell, my boss's son, had walked in tall, effortlessly cool in his leather jacket, with green eyes that seemed to see right through you. We'd met a few times at company events, always exchanging polite small talk. Nothing more. That day, though, we ended up at the same tiny table, squeezed together because the place was packed. Someone, probably a nosy regular, saw us laughing over our coffees and assumed we were on a date. Word got back to my boss, Richard Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Tech, and he ran with it. Now, here I was, 25 years old, a junior software developer trying to climb the corporate ladder, stuck in a lie I didn't know how to unravel. Richard was thrilled, constantly dropping hints about you boys and inviting me to family dinners. Liam, to my horror, played along, winking at me across meeting rooms like we shared some grand secret. The problem? I wasn't sure if Liam was in on the joke or if he actually liked me. And worse, I was starting to wonder if I liked him. The lie grew legs the day Richard invited me to his sprawling estate in Bellevue for a casual Sunday barbecue. I arrived in my best attempt at Caswalla denim jacket over a plain tee, feeling like I was walking into a lion's den. The backyard was a scene out of a magazine, fairy lights strung between towering pines, a long table piled with ribs and cornbread, and a jazz quartet playing softly in the corner. Richard greeted me with a bear hug, his graying beard scratching my cheek. "Evan, where's my boy?" he boomed, scanning for Liam. Liam appeared moments later, his black hair catching the sunlight, a lazy grin on his face. "Hey, Ev," he said, his voice low and teasing, like we'd been calling each other nicknames forever. My stomach flipped. He handed me a beer, his fingers brushing mine just long enough to make me question everything. Was he flirting? Or was this all part of the act? The afternoon blurred into a haze of small talk and stolen glances. Richard kept us close, introducing us as the happy couple to his friends, tech moguls, venture capitalists, people who could make or break my career. Each time, Liam would sling an arm around my shoulders, his touch warm and infuriatingly natural. I played along, laughing at his jokes, leaning into him when Richard looked our way. But every time our eyes met, I felt a spark I couldn't explain. It was dangerous, this game we were playing, and I was losing track of where the lie ended and the truth began. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, I was exhausted from pretending. Liam walked me to my car, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "You're good at this," he said, his voice soft but unreadable. "The whole fake boyfriend thing." "Yeah, well, I don't have much choice," I muttered, avoiding his gaze. "Your dad's basically planning our wedding." Liam laughed, a sound that made my chest ache. "He's something, isn't he? Look, Evan, if this is too much, we can." "No," I cut in, too quickly. "It's fine. I mean, it's not like it's hard to pretend." The words felt like a confession, and I hated how true they were. He stepped closer, his green eyes searching mine. "Good," he said, almost a whisper, "because I'm kind of enjoying it." I drove home that night with my heart pounding, replaying his words. Was he serious? Or was he just better at this game than I was? Monday morning at Caldwell Tech was a nightmare. I was buried in code, debugging a glitch in our new app, when Richard called me into his office. "Evan, my boy," he said, leaning back in his leather chair. "I've got a proposition for you and Liam." My stomach dropped. What kind of proposition? He grinned, oblivious to my panic. The company's hosting a gala next month, big charity event. Lots of press. I want you two to be front and center. Show the world what a modern, inclusive company we are. He winked. Plus, you're adorable together. I forced a smile, my mind racing. A gala. With cameras. This lie was spiraling out of control. I mumbled something about being honored and fled back to my desk. I needed to talk to Liam. Now. I found him in the break room, pouring coffee like he didn't have a care in the world. We need to talk, I hissed, dragging him to a quiet corner. Miss me already? He teased, but his smile faded when he saw my face. What's wrong? Your dad wants us at the gala. As a couple. In front of everyone. Liam's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Okay, he said slowly. So we do it. What's the big deal? The big deal. I whispered furiously. This isn't just your dad's friends anymore. This is public. People will talk. My career, your career. Evan. He said my name like it was a lifeline. His voice steady. We've got this. We've been pulling it off so far. Right. I wanted to scream that it wasn't just about pulling it off. It was about the way my heart raced when he looked at me. The way I couldn't stop thinking about him. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded. Because what else could I do? Fine, I said. But we need ground rules. No more improvising. He smirked, leaning closer. You mean no more holding hands? No more pretending I'm crazy about you? I glared, but my face was burning. Exactly. Deal, he said, but his grin told me he wasn't going to make this easy. The weeks leading up to the gala were a blur of preparation and panic. Richard insisted on dressing us up, sending us to a tailor in downtown Seattle who fitted us for matching navy suits. Standing next to Liam in front of a full-length mirror, our shoulders brushing, I felt like I was in some kind of fever dream. He looked unfairly good, his suit hugging his frame, his green eyes catching the light. Not bad. Huh, he said, nudging me. I rolled my eyes, trying to ignore the way my pulse spiked. Let's just get through this. But getting through it was easier said than done. Richard's excitement was relentless, sent us to dance lessons, claiming we needed to nail the first dance at the gala. The lessons were torture. Liam's hand on my waist, his breath warm against my ear as we stumbled through a waltz. Felt too real. Every touch, every glance, blurred the line between pretend and something else entirely. One night, after a particularly grueling lesson, we ended up at Brew and Bloom again. Just the two of us. The coffee shop was quiet, the fairy lights casting a soft glow. Liam leaned back in his chair, watching me over his latte. You're freaking out about this, aren't you? He said. I sighed, running a hand through my curly hair. Aren't you? This is insane. Liam, we're lying to everyone. He leaned forward, his voice low. Maybe it doesn't have to be a lie. My breath caught. What are you saying? He held my gaze, unflinching. I'm saying I like you. Evan. For real. And I think you like me too. The world tilted. I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but the truth was clawing its way out. I did like him. I liked the way he made me laugh, the way he saw through my defenses, the way he made this whole ridiculous lie feel like something worth believing in. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Richard, Gala's in 1 week. You boys ready to shine? I looked at Liam, my heart in my throat. We're in too deep, I whispered. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. Then let's make it worth it. The week before the gala felt like walking a tightrope over a volcano. Every day at Caldwell Tech, I caught myself watching Liam, his easy smile as he chatted with coworkers, the way his green eyes lit up when he solved a coding problem. I hated how much I noticed him, how much I wanted his words at Brew and Bloom to be true. But the lie loomed larger than ever, a shadow over every moment we shared. Richard was in full event planner mode, sending me and Liam emails about the gala schedule, the guest list, even the menu. "You two are the stars of the show," he said during a meeting, his grin wide enough to light up the room. I forced a smile, but inside, I was unraveling. The gala wasn't just a party, it was a public declaration of a relationship that didn't exist. Or did it? Liam's confession kept replaying in my head, and I didn't know how to respond. On Wednesday, we had our final dance lesson at a studio in Capitol Hill. The instructor, a wiry woman named Clara, clapped her hands as Liam and I fumbled through a slow foxtrot. "Feel the music," she barked. "Evan, stop thinking so much." Easier said than done. Liam's hand was warm on my lower back, guiding me with a confidence I couldn't muster. When we spun, our eyes locked, and for a moment, the world was just us, no lies. No gala. No Richard. "You're getting better," Liam said as we stepped apart, his voice teasing but soft. "Yeah, well, I don't have a choice," I muttered, wiping sweat from my brow. "Your dad's got us on a leash." Liam's smile faltered. "Is that all this is to you? Doing what my dad wants?" I froze. The studio's mirrors reflected us from every angle, and I felt exposed. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's not just that. I don't know what's real anymore." He stepped closer, his gaze steady. "I meant what I said at the coffee shop. Evan, this doesn't have to be pretend." My heart pounded, but before I could respond, Clara called us back to practice. I spent the rest of the lesson in a daze, Liam's words echoing louder than the music. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my tiny balcony in Fremont, staring at the city lights, trying to untangle my feelings. I liked Liam more than I wanted to admit, but the lie had twisted everything. If I told him how I felt, would it be because I wanted to, or because we'd been playing this role for too long? And what happened if Richard found out we'd been faking it? My job, my future at Caldwell Techet was all on the line. The next day, I cornered Liam in the office parking lot after work. He was leaning against his motorcycle, looking like he belonged in a magazine ad. "We need to come clean," I said, my voice shaking. "Before the gala. This is getting out of hand." Liam raised an eyebrow, his expression unreadable. "Come clean? To my dad?" "Yes," I said, pacing. "We can't keep lying. It's not fair to him, or to us. What if someone at the gala figures it out? What if, Evan?" He grabbed my arm, stopping me mid-step. "What if we don't want to come clean?" I stared at him, my mouth dry. "What are you talking about?" He let go, running a hand through his hair. "I'm talking about us. Maybe this started as a misunderstanding, but it doesn't have to end that way. I like you, Evan. I've liked you since that day in the coffee shop, when you laughed so hard you spilled your latte. I don't want to stop this." My chest tightened. "Liam, this is crazy. We can't just turn a lie into something real." "Why not?" he challenged, stepping closer. "Why can't we decide what this is?" I didn't have an answer. All I could do was stand there, caught in the intensity of his gaze, the Seattle skyline glittering behind him. For a moment, I wanted to say yes, to let myself fall into whatever this was. But fear clawed at my fear of losing my job, of ruining everything, of getting hurt. "I need time," I said finally, my voice barely audible. Liam nodded, his jaw tight. "Okay, but don't take too long. Ev, the gala's in 3 days." The gala was held at the Chihuly Garden and Glass, a venue that screamed extravagance with its vibrant glass sculptures and glittering chandeliers. I stood in front of my mirror that morning, adjusting my navy suit, trying to convince myself I could pull this off. Liam and I had barely spoken since the parking lot, and the distance between us felt like a chasm. I didn't know if I was ready to tell Richard the truth or to admit to Liam that I was falling for him. When I arrived, the venue was already buzzing. Photographers snapped pictures, and guests in tuxedos and gowns mingled under the glowing lights. Richard found me immediately, pulling me into a hug. "There's my boy," he said, his voice booming. "Where's Liam?" Before I could answer, Liam appeared, looking devastating in his suit. His black hair swept back, his green eyes finding mine across the room. My heart skipped a beat. He walked over, his smile easy but guarded. "Ready to steal the show?" he asked, offering his arm. I took it, my throat tight. "Let's do this." The night was a whirlwind. We posed for photos, laughed at Richard's jokes, and danced under the watchful eyes of Seattle's elite. Liam's hand was steady in mine, his presence grounding me even as my mind raced. Every time our eyes met, I felt that spark again, stronger than ever. But the lie hung over us, a weight I couldn't ignore. Halfway through the night, Richard pulled us aside, his face beaming. "I've got something for you boys," he said, handing us an envelope. "Open it later, when you're alone. It's a little gift from me." I took the envelope, my hand shaking. "Richard, you didn't have to." "Nonsense," he interrupted, clapping us both on the shoulders. "You two are the real deal. I'm proud of you." Guilt twisted in my gut. I glanced at Liam, but his expression was unreadable. We thanked Richard and rejoined the party, but the envelope burned in my pocket. What was it? A bonus? A vacation? Whatever it was, it felt like another chain binding us to the lie. As the night wound down, Liam pulled me onto the dance floor for the final slow dance. The music was soft, the glass sculptures casting colorful shadows around us. His hand rested on my waist, and I could feel the warmth of his breath as he leaned in. "Evan," he whispered, "we need to talk. After this." I nodded, my heart pounding. The lie had carried us this far, but it couldn't carry us any further. Tonight, one way or another, we had to face the truth. The music faded, and the crowd began to thin, but the weight of Liam's words lingered. We slipped away from the gala, finding a quiet corner in the Chihuly garden, where glass flowers glowed under the moonlight. I clutched the envelope Richard had given us, its contents a mystery I wasn't ready to face. Liam stood close, his green eyes searching mine, and I knew this was a moment we'd either unravel the lie or let it consume us. "Evan," he said, his voice low, "we can't keep pretending. Not to my dad. Not to ourselves." I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. "I know. But if we tell him the truth, everything falls apart. My job, your relationship with him." "Screw that," Liam interrupted, his voice fierce. "This isn't about my dad or your job. This is about us. Do you feel something here? Or am I imagining it?" His words hit like a punch. I wanted to deny it, to cling to the safety of the lie, but the truth was undeniable. I felt it every time he smiled, every time his hand brushed mine. "I do," I admitted, my voice barely audible. "But I'm scared. Liam, this started as a mistake. And now it's real," he finished, stepping closer. "It's been real for me since that day in the coffee shop. I don't care how it started. I care about where it's going." Before I could respond, I opened the envelope, desperate for a distraction. Inside was a letter from Richard, handwritten in his bold, looping script. It read, "To Evan and Liam, my boys, I've reserved a weekend for you at a cabin in Whidbey Island. A little getaway to celebrate your love. Dad." My stomach dropped. "He's not going to let this go, is he?" I said, handing the letter to Liam. He scanned it, his jaw tightening. "No, but maybe that's a good thing." I stared at him, incredulous. "A good thing? Liam, we're drowning in this lie." "Then let's make it the truth," he said, his voice steady. Come with me to Whidbey. Not because of my dad, but because you want to. Because we could be something real. I wanted to say yes, to throw caution to the wind, but fear held me back. And if it doesn't work, what then? Liam's expression softened. Then we tried, but I think we're worth trying for. I didn't have an answer. Not yet. We left the gala in silence, the letter burning a hole in my pocket, Liam's words echoing in my head. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Liam, Whidbey. This weekend. You in? I stared at the screen, my heart racing. The gala had pushed us to the edge, and now I had to decide whether to jump. I spent the day pacing my apartment, weighing the risks. If I went, I was admitting I wanted him. If I didn't, I was letting fear win. By evening, I'd made my choice. I texted back, I'm in. The drive to Whidbey Island was quiet, the Seattle skyline fading behind us as we crossed the ferry. Liam drove, his hands steady on the wheel, while I stared out at the Puget Sound, its waves glinting under the cloudy sky. The cabin was nestled in a forest of cedars, a cozy wooden retreat with a view of the water. It felt like a world away from the chaos of the gala, from the lie that had brought us here. Inside, the cabin was warm, with a stone fireplace and a quilt-covered couch. Liam dropped his bag and turned to me, his expression nervous for the first time. So, he said, what now? I laughed, the tension breaking. You're asking me. This was your idea. He grinned, stepping closer. Fair enough. How about we start with this? He reached for my hand, his fingers lacing through mine. It was the first time we'd touched without an audience, and it felt like a revelation. We spent the day exploring the island, walking along the rocky beach, sharing stories about our lives before the lie. I told him about growing up in a small Oregon town, about coming out to my parents and the fear that came with it. He told me about his strained relationship with Richard, how he'd always felt like he had to prove himself. For the first time, we weren't pretending. We were just Evan and Liam, two guys figuring out what we meant to each other. That night, we sat by the fire, the crackling logs filling the silence. I'm sorry I dragged you into this, I said, staring at the flames. If I'd just corrected your dad that first day, then we wouldn't be here. Liam cut in, his voice soft. And I'm really glad we're here. I looked at him, his face lit by the firelight, and something shifted. I leaned in, and so did he. And when our lips met, it wasn't for show. It was real, raw, and terrifyingly perfect. The kiss deepened, and for the first time, I let myself believe this could be more than a lie. But reality has a way of crashing in. On Sunday morning, as we were packing to leave, my phone rang. It was Richard. Evan, my boy, he said, his voice bright. How's the cabin? You two having fun? I glanced at Liam, who was watching me with a small smile. Yeah, it's great, I said, my voice steady. Thanks for this, Richard. Anything for you too, he said. Listen, I've got a surprise. I'm coming up to Whidbey tonight. Thought we could all have dinner together. My heart stopped. Tonight, I croaked. Yep. See you at 7. He hung up before I could respond. Liam raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Your dad's coming here, I said, panic rising. Tonight. He wants to have dinner. Liam's smile faded. Okay. So we tell him the truth. I shook my head, pacing. We can't. Not now. Not after this. I gestured between us, my face burning. Liam grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to stop. Evan, listen to me. Whatever happens, we're in this together. Okay. I nodded, but dread settled in my chest. The weekend had felt like a dream, but Richard's arrival was a wake-up call. We couldn't keep running from the truth. The hours before Richard's arrival were a blur of nervous energy. Liam and I cleaned the cabin, trying to act like everything was normal. But the air was thick with unspoken questions. What would we say to Richard? How do you tell someone you've been lying to them for months? Especially when that someone is your boss and your maybe boyfriend's father. The kiss from last night lingered in my mind. A promise of something real. But now it felt fragile, like it could shatter under Richard's scrutiny. We decided to keep up the act for dinner, at least until we could figure out how to break the news. Liam suggested we play it cool, act like the happy couple Richard expected, and find the right moment to come clean. I agreed, but my stomach was in knots. The lie had brought us together, but it was also tearing me apart. Richard arrived at 7 on the dot, his SUV crunching up the gravel drive. He stepped out, his graying beard catching the evening light, his arms loaded with bags of groceries. "Hope you boys are hungry," he called, grinning. "I brought steaks." Liam and I exchanged a glance, forcing smiles. "Hey, Dad," Liam said, taking the bags. "This is a surprise." "A good one, I hope," Richard said, pulling me into a hug. "Evan, you're looking happy. This place must be working its magic." "Yeah," I said, my voice tight. "It's been great." Dinner was torture. We sat around the cabin's wooden table, the steaks sizzling on a portable grill Richard had brought. He chatted nonstop about the gala, the company, how proud he was of his boys. Every time he called us a couple, I felt like I was suffocating. Liam played his part perfectly, his hand resting on mine under the table, his laugh easy and warm. But I could see the tension in his eyes, the same fear I felt. After dinner, Richard poured us glasses of whiskey and leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said, his voice softer, "I haven't seen Liam this happy in years. You're good for him, Evan." I froze, the whiskey burning my throat. Liam squeezed my hand, but I couldn't look at him. "Thanks, Richard," I managed, my voice barely steady. "Dad," Liam started, his tone careful. "There's something we need to talk about." My heart stopped. Was he doing this now? I shot him a panicked look, but he pressed on. "This whole thing, Gus. I may and it didn't start the way you think." Richard frowned, setting down his glass. "What do you mean?" Liam took a deep breath, and I braced myself. It started as a misunderstanding. Someone saw us together at Brew and Bloom and thought we were dating. We didn't correct it because, well, it just snowballed. The room went silent. Richard's face was unreadable, his eyes flicking between us. "So, you're not together?" he asked, his voice low. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Liam looked at me, his expression pleading, and I realized this was my moment to choose. "We weren't," I said finally, my voice shaking. "Not at first. But things changed." Richard's eyebrows shot up. "Changed how?" Liam's hand tightened on mine, and I found the courage to keep going. "I care about Liam," I said, my voice steadier now. "For real. It started as a lie, but it's not anymore." The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then, to my shock, Richard laughed, a deep, booming sound that filled the room. "You two had me fooled," he said, shaking his head. "But hell, if it got you here, I'm not complaining." I blinked, stunned. "You're not mad?" "Mad," Richard said, still chuckling. "Evan, I've been in business long enough to know a good thing when I see it. You two are the real deal, whether you planned it or not." Liam let out a breath, his shoulders relaxing. "So you're okay with this?" "Okay," Richard said, standing to clap us both on the shoulders. "I'm thrilled. Now, let's have another drink to celebrate properly this time." The rest of the night felt like a dream. Richard stayed until midnight, telling stories about his own wild youth, his laughter easing the tension. When he finally left, promising to visit again soon, Liam and I stood on the cabin's porch, the night air cool against our skin. "Well," Liam said, his voice soft, "that went better than expected." I laughed, the sound shaky with relief. "Yeah, I thought we were done for." He turned to me, his green eyes catching the moonlight. "You meant what you said, right? About this being real?" I nodded, my heart racing. "Yeah, I meant it." He stepped closer, his hand finding mine. "Good. Because I'm not letting you go now." We kissed again, slower this time, the weight of the lie finally gone. For the first time, I felt free to want him, to love him, without the shadow of pretense. The weeks after Whidbey were a whirlwind. Liam and I were no longer pretending. But navigating a real relationship was messier than any lie. We went on actual dates, dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants in Pike Place, late-night walks along Alki Beach, stolen kisses in the office break room when no one was looking. But the truth had its own challenges. Co-workers whispered, some with admiration, others with envy. Richard's enthusiasm didn't help. He was already hinting at holiday plans, inviting us to his cabin in Aspen. At work, I threw myself into my projects, determined to prove I was more than the guy dating the boss's son. Liam, meanwhile, was working on a new app, his focus intense, but his smile always ready when he caught my eye across the office. We were finding our rhythm, but doubts lingered. Could we really make this work? Or was our foundation too shaky, built on a lie? One evening, we ended up back at Brew and Bloom, the coffee shop where it all began. The fairy lights were still there, the air warm with the smell of espresso. We sat at the same cramped table, our knees brushing under it. "This place feels like ours," Liam said, his voice soft. I smiled, stirring my latte. "Yeah, even if it started with a misunderstanding." He reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. I'm glad it did. I wouldn't change a thing. I wanted to believe him, but the fear was still there, a quiet voice in the back of my mind. What if this is too good to be true? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What if we crash and burn? Liam's expression softened. Then we crash and burn together. But I don't think we will. Ev, I think we're just getting started. His words settled something in me, a piece I hadn't realized was out of place. I leaned across the table and kissed him, not caring who saw. For the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Months later, we were stronger than ever. The whispers at work faded, replaced by respect for our hustle. Richard, true to form, kept us on our toes, inviting us to every family event. But his pride was genuine, and it warmed me in a way I hadn't expected. Liam and I moved in together, a small apartment in Capitol Hill with a view of the city we'd made our own. It wasn't perfect. There were fights, late nights, moments of doubt, but it was ours. One spring evening, we walked through a park near our place, cherry blossoms falling like confetti. Liam stopped by a bench, his hand in mine. You know, he said, his voice teasing, this is where I first realized I was falling for you. I laughed, nudging him. You mean when we were faking it for your dad? He grinned, pulling me close. Yeah, but it was never fake for me. I looked at him, his green eyes bright in the fading light, and I knew he was right. The lie had been a spark, but what we had now was a flame real, messy, and worth every risk. We sat on the bench, watching the sunset, and I realized that sometimes the best truths come from the most unexpected lies. The end.